people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. An Instagram story from newly crowned WBO welterweight champion Sandy Ryan. She was asked by Daz Fieldhouse, no fight with McCaskill yet? To which Sandy responded, nothing confirmed just yet. If it takes a while, I might open up an OnlyFans. Need some cash. Sandy Ryan and Jessica McCaskill are the only two champions in the women's welterweight division. In that way, they're both just one fight away from becoming undisputed champions. Obviously, Jessica McCaskill has already been there and done that, but they're both just one fight away from that mantle, from that handle. This has given rise to conversations about the potential matchup. An Instagram account that goes by the name Official World of Boxing called the fight a must-happen this year, a must-happen in the year of 2023. That's how some people feel, though not everyone, not others. Up-and-comer from right here in the US of A, Zarina McCoy, reacted to that story saying, this is definitely not a must-happen for 2023. No one wants to see this. Don't insult Jessica like that. There's way better competition out there. And Rick Ramos seems to share in that sentiment as he re-uploaded her reaction to it on his own Instagram story. I take it that Rick is not too keen on the Sandy Ryan fight. I caught wind of an interview conducted with Rick Ramos. I think it was last week or the week before last. Uploaded to World Boxing News Weekly's channel here on YouTube. Rick feels wrong. He's angry with Matchroom. Here's why. Initially, Jessica McCaskill was supposed to be defending her remaining Alphabet titles against Ivana Habazin, her mandatory challenger. Matchroom had the rights to that show. I'll give you the condensed version. At first, Ivana Habazin's promoter won the rights to the fight, but then they defaulted. The rights were then defaulted to Matchroom, and the expectation was that Matchroom would be doing the show over the summer months. Matchroom was the second highest bidder. After Ivana Habazin's promoter defaulted, the rights went to Matchroom, and that's what the expectation was. Now, we know that Terry Harper was supposed to be fighting Cecilia Brækhus, but Cecilia dropped out. Right. As a result of that, she ended up fighting Ivana Habazin. The same Ivana Habazin that Jessica McCaskill was supposed to be fighting. And according to Rick, he wasn't told, he wasn't notified that Ivana Habazin would be fighting someone else instead of Jessica. He wasn't told that Ivana would be standing in for a Harper fight at 154 instead of a McCaskill fight at 147. He said that he found out via social media, which was unprofessional. Him finding out that news via social media with everyone else. Why didn't someone from Matchroom give him a call? Why didn't they let him know that they'd struck a separate deal for Ivana Habazin to fight Terry Harper instead of his fighter? In a nutshell, he feels like Matchroom was trying to cut him and Jessica out of the picture. He feels that he should have been notified of the deal. That if Matchroom was going to be promoting Jessica's next fight, then surely Matchroom should have notified her that Ivana Habazin was going another route, but they didn't. Going another route with another Matchroom fighter, Rick Ramos and Jessica McCaskill in many ways feel left out in the cold by Matchroom because they didn't get so much as a text message or a phone call. I get it. Thus, they're not in any hurry to do either Matchroom or any Matchroom fighters any favors, Sandy Ryan included. That's the feeling. And that's the gist of it. The Ivana Habazin fight wasn't just a mandated title defense for Jessica McCaskill. It would have been an opportunity for Jessica to get back in the winner's bracket. She's still coming off that loss to Chantel Kamran. The Ivana Habazin fight was an opportunity for Jessica and Rick to kill two birds with one stone, three in some ways. Get back in the winner's bracket, have a keep busy fight, get your mandatory out of the way, and make some money. Perhaps Team McCaskill feel that Matchroom deprived them of that opportunity. Now they want to thrust them into a difficult fight, a dangerous fight with Sandy Ryan. And they don't seem to be on board, at least Rick doesn't. That Boxing Weekly video, Rick Ramos mentioned a potential Natasha Jonas fight. Natasha Jonas, who's supposed to be fighting on the undercard of Cruz Dezern versus Marshall. Natasha's opponent hasn't been announced yet. To my knowledge, she hasn't. Is it possible that she could face Jessica McCaskill on that undercard? Well, until they announce who Natasha's going to be fighting, I wouldn't rule it out. So in a nutshell, Rick is raw with Matchroom, and it doesn't seem like he's in any hurry to do any of their fighters any favors, Sandy Ryan included. Moreover, if he's courting the idea of fighting Natasha Jonas, that has to mean they're not under contract. Right. They're not under contract with Matchroom, and they have the autonomy to field offers from Boxer and Sky. Because they're not under contract with Matchroom. Did Matchroom drop the ball here, keeping Team McCaskill in the dark about Ivana Habazin? Did they potentially cost their fighter, Sandy Ryan, an opportunity by keeping Jessica McCaskill in the dark? Should they have left the lines of communication open? That's a story that only time can tell. Men's welterweight news, welterweight up-and-comer Cody Crowley is up for a showdown against Jaron Boots Ennis. We know this summer Jaron Ennis is supposed to be headlining his own show opposite the ring Roman Villa, who's coming off a career-best win over then unbeaten Rashidi Ellis. Beyond that, I feel like a Cody Crowley fight makes sense. Having made his normal annual appearance, Crowley is hoping that his victory over Abel Ramos won't be the last time he puts his skills on display this year, although several of the division's top stars are tied up. Crowley recently revealed that he would be more than willing to step through the ropes against one of the division's hottest names. Of course, any fight that makes me better, said Crowley during an interview with Hardcore Boxing News when asked if he would face Ennis next. Any fight that's gonna make me grow. I want to be the best. I believe I am the best, so I gotta prove it by beating people that others may think are better than me. Jaron Ennis has already seen action once this year, and he's set to see action for the second time over the summer months. Beyond that, I think it's only right. I think it makes sense. Jaron Ennis is a fighter that Showtime is so obviously invested in. And in the absence of a big name, a signature name for what would be a signature fight, the next best thing is keeping him busy, keeping him active, keeping him out there. That's how Golovkin rose to stardom, plowing through guys on what was a very busy schedule. By and large, Ennis's foes have attempted to stand their ground and bang it out with him in the center of the ring, but after witnessing countless bodies pile up on the canvas, Karen Chukatsian, his latest rival, did his best to box and punch, dance and move. While it did allow him to reach the final bell, winning their clash was out of the question as Ennis cruised to a unanimous decision win. Presently, according to both his father and trainer, Derek Bozy Ennis, his son has something lined up for July. The Roman Villa fight. Assuming Jaron handles business like always, Crowley will be standing directly at his front door with a pen and paper in hand and an immense amount of optimism. And as stated, in the absence of a big name, a signature name for what would be a signature fight, the next best thing that Showtime can do for Jaron Ennis is keep him busy, keep him active, and keep adding names to that highlight reel. Highlight reel knockouts. He did knock out Karen Chukatsian, who chose to fight a defensively minded fight, really only half a fight. He got the defense part right, just not the offense part. Didn't mount anything semblant of offense. So I don't think that'll be the case with Roman Villa. Roman Villa, who in many ways is the opposite of Karen Chukatsian. Karen is a defensively minded fighter, Roman is an offensively minded fighter, stepping into his punches, coming forward, and looking to mix it up mid-range. I think Boots knocks him out. And if he makes short work of Roman Villa, the same way he did Thomas Dulorme and Castillo Clayton before him, if he finishes this guy in the first round or before the midway point, before the half, I don't see why they shouldn't get him back out there later on this year. They need to. In the absence of a big marquee fight with a big name fighter, the next best thing would be keeping the fighter busy, keeping the fighter active, and getting as many fight fans familiar with the fighter as you can. These are not expensive fights to make. These are not expensive opponents. That's the silver lining. You don't have to break the bank to pay guys like Karen Chukatsian or Roman Villa, Cody Crowley after him, Radzov Butaev. We haven't seen him since the Amantis Stanionis fight. He's a tough guy. He's a tough nut to crack. I'd like to see Jaron Ennis fight him at some point. A busy schedule can help to garner Jaron Ennis the marquee value he doesn't have. And if Cody Crowley is receptive to a fight with him, I don't see why Showtime shouldn't make it beyond the Roman Villa fight, provided that the fight isn't a physically taxing fight barring illness or injury. I don't don't see why Ennis shouldn't fight this guy later on this year. He's going to be headlining his first show with Roman Villa. He's at a point where they're confident enough that he can headline his own shows. You want the guy to develop a grassroots following, and one way to get him there is to keep him busy. Until such a time as he can corner a fight with the likes of a Keith Thurman or somebody like that. Keith Thurman, who says he expects to fight this summer. Your boy's got to get back. It's turned into a running gag the last 5 years or so. It's always a get-back year with Keith Thurman. It seems like he's always coming back from a long hiatus, a long holiday, a long stint of inactivity. It's been a year since the Mario Barrios fight. Over a year now. A year squandered. We don't have our date announced, but I know it's all in the works, Thurman told Fight Hub TV. We have this big pay-per-view coming up, Spence versus Crawford, but I know Al and me will be talking shortly, and there will be announcements hitting because your boy's got to get back this summer. We got caught up in a little bit of a political stanza, but you know, I'm still happy to be here because at the end of the day, man, we wish to be at the top. You get at the top, things get a little political, but everything's a blessing in disguise at the end of the day. Asked if there was any chance he might appear on the Spence versus Crawford card, Thurman demurred, "Nah, I've been a main event fighter for way too long," he said, adding rhetorically, "When's the last time they stacked a pay-per-view card like that?" In an ideal world, Keith Thurman would be vying for dominance opposite the ring, an unbeaten up-and-comer like a Jaron Ennis to prove that he's still got it. But I don't get the sense that upon his ring return, that's the kind of fight that he's looking for. Maybe he fights a former champion like himself in Yordenis Lugas. He hasn't fought in a year, the same as Keith. Though beating Yordenis Lugas off a year layoff and a stoppage loss to Errol Spence Jr. last year, that doesn't communicate the same message as fighting someone who's younger and stronger. Someone who people think is the next big thing, like a Jaron Boots Ennis, for example, somebody that people are talking about. Nobody's talking about Yordenis Lugas. What I'm talking about is more or less what we saw when Jose Zepeda went to New York and took out Josue Vargas, took him out in one round. A younger fighter, a fresher fighter, a fighter that people were talking about, in a fighter the Top Rank was invested in. Jose Zepeda made short work of Josue, proving that he's still got it. He did. Keith Thurman, I don't think he wants to do that. I don't think he wants to find himself in a fight like that. But by all rights, if you wanted to prove to the boxing world that you're not a gatekeeper, you're not a journeyman, that you've still got it and you can still compete amongst the best and brightest fighters in the welterweight division, well, that's what you'd be doing. But I don't think that's what Keith will be doing the next time we see him. And finally, in men's light heavyweight news, Artur Beterbiev's trainer, Mark Ramsay, is concerned. He views Callum Smith as a complex fight. He will have been the best boxer they have faced so far. Myself, I'm of the opinion that Alexander Vosdik was a pretty complex guy, good guy, solid guy. Is Mark essentially saying that a Smith fight could prove to be a tougher fight than the Vosdik fight was? Because the Vosdik fight was no cakewalk. Some observers felt the 38-year-old champion Artur Beterbiev was starting to show his age in the Anthony Yarde fight earlier this year. Ramsay has a lot of respect for Smith and views him as the most dangerous opponent of Artur's career, which is why he intends to exclusively train Beterbiev, while his other protege, Christian Mabili, who is slated to appear on the undercard, will be left in the good care of Russ Abner and Samuel Carey. Really? Callum Smith is the best boxer we've faced, said Ramsay to the Quebec Journal. It's not a situation that I like to leave Mabili with others, but the magnitude of this fight means that I can't have my mind in several different places. All of my attention will be on Artur. Contrasting views when it comes to this fight between Mark Ramsay and the spectators. In what is this spectator sport, most people seem convinced that Artur should be able to plow through Callum the same way he's plowed through everyone else, whereas Mark's giving Callum a lot more credit than they are. You can take an independent poll right now as to who most people feel would win that fight, will win that fight later on this summer, and you're going to get Artur Beterbiev. On Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, most people are going to vote for Artur, whereas Mark, he sees something in Callum worth worrying about. Smith is a complete 6'3" boxer with long reach. He has a lot of skill, speed, and power. Is a complex fight, but it's a fascinating challenge for us. Should Beterbiev win, he would like to pursue an undisputed fight with WBA world champion Dmitry Bivol. A fight we've talked about ad nauseum, but not a fight that we're about to see. He's got to take care of business with Callum Smith first. And it's hard for me to give Callum little more than just a puncher's chance. I mean, I understand what Mark Ramsay is saying, and I get that, though if I were a gambling man, I'd bet that Artur Beterbiev has more than enough to dispatch Callum Smith, who gave John Ryder and Canelo Alvarez a lot of respect. At 168 pounds, smaller men, smaller punchers than Artur Beterbiev, who's a lot bigger and more destructive. Standing in at 6'3", Callum always had very generous physical dimensions for a super middleweight and even for a light heavyweight. One or two things have changed for Callum Smith since moving up in weight. He used to train with Tesco Joe Gallagher, but now he's with Buddy McGirt, former champion trainer Buddy McGirt. This is a much healthier weight for Callum, and he seems a stronger puncher for it. His straight right hand that he stopped Lennon Castillo with, his catch and counter left hook that he stopped Matthew Bowder-Leak with in his last fight. Good performances and good wins for Callum, but those men are not Artur Beterbiev, and they don't have the power he has in both hands, the kind of power that can elicit a lot of respect from an opponent, so much so Callum may not want to let his hands go. Like he didn't want to let his hands go in the Canelo fight? Let Canelo Alvarez beat on his arms so much so that he suffered a bicep injury throughout the course of the fight, and Canelo Alvarez, God bless him, he don't punch as hard as Artur Beterbiev. Let that guy beat on your arms, he's gonna break them. Staying behind a tight guard, a shell guard, unable to get punches off for fear that you're gonna get caught in between the shots, in between the punches. I don't think for a second that Callum can keep Artur Beterbiev out of the pocket. And if he's in the pocket, what you then have to wonder is, will Callum gamble? Will he want to? Because at that range, that's what it would be. It would be a gamble trying for shots within close proximity of Artur Beterbiev. He'll chop that tree down. Body shots just under or around the elbow, uppercuts up the middle, hooks around the guard, around the side of the head. This guy's a two-handed puncher, a two-handed fighter. Within close quarters, the shorter, stumpier fighter with the shorter arms actually has the advantage, not the 6'3" guy with long extremities. Those long arms don't service him as well as they might long range, long distance. Within close quarters, it's hard for a fighter with long arms to get their punches off because there's not enough room to throw. Tall guy with long arms needs room to work. I feel like Artur's performance with Callum Smith will be something akin to what we saw in the Marcus Brown fight. He's going to try to invade Callum's personal space. Something akin to what we saw in the Brown fight, something akin to what we saw in the Alexander Vosdik fight in 2018. He had a height advantage just like Callum. And he got found out. He got found out anyway. For my money, I thought Vosdik was a more complex fighter. I still think he's a more complex fighter than Callum Smith. I don't presume to tell Mark Ramsay how he should feel or how he should do his job. All I can tell you is what I think, and if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do. Callum Smith does pack a big enough punch that if he can land, he can hurt Artur, possibly put him down and keep him down, but that's only if he can land, and whether or not he can land is contingent upon whether or not he throws. Opposite the ring, the biggest puncher in this division. Is he gonna want to?